You thought the first 5 were brutal? These 5 female dictators were even worse. Today on Tyrant Tales, Part 3 of history's most ruthless women rulers. From an empress who blinded her own son to keep power, to a queen who fought colonial armies for 40 years. These women made male tyrants look merciful by comparison. Stay until the end because the last dictator on this list poisoned her own husband to make her son emperor. Number 5. Empress Irene of Byzantium blinded her own son. In 797 AD, Empress Irene of the Byzantine Empire did something that shocked even the brutal standards of medieval politics. She ordered her own son's eyes gouged out with red-hot irons to prevent him from ever challenging her power again. Irene had served as regent for her young son Constantine VI after her husband died. But when Constantine came of age and tried to rule on his own, Irene refused to give up control. She had spent years manipulating the Byzantine court, building alliances, and eliminating rivals. When Constantine attempted to exile his mother and take full power, Irene struck back with calculated brutality. She organized a coup, had her son arrested, and ordered the horrific punishment. The blinding was carried out in the Purple Chamber where Constantine was born. A deliberate symbolic violation. Constantine survived the blinding but was left completely helpless, unable to rule or threaten his mother's power. Irene then declared herself not empress but emperor, taking the masculine title to emphasize her absolute authority. She became the first woman to rule the Byzantine Empire in her own right. Irene ruled for 5 years with an iron fist. She made peace with enemies, reformed taxation, and restored icon worship in the church. But her reign was built on the foundation of her son's torture and political terror. When she was finally overthrown in 802 AD, she was exiled to the island of Lesbos where she died alone. The woman who destroyed her own child to keep power became a cautionary tale about ambition without limits. Number 4. Nur Jahan of India, the Shadow Empress. In Mughal India, no woman was supposed to rule. But Nur Jahan found a way around that restriction. She controlled the emperor himself. Born in 1577, Nur Jahan married Emperor Jahangir in 1611 when she was 34 years old. Within months, she had become the true power behind the throne. Jahangir was addicted to alcohol and opium, spending his days in a haze while Nur Jahan ran the empire from behind a silk curtain. She issued imperial orders in her own name, something no Mughal empress had ever done before. She held court, made political decisions, and commanded the loyalty of generals and governors. Coins were minted with her name alongside the emperor's. She controlled who had access to Jahangir, effectively making herself the gatekeeper to power. But Nur Jahan didn't just manipulate politics. She eliminated threats with ruthless efficiency. When nobles opposed her, they mysteriously died or disappeared. When rival princes challenged her authority, she had them imprisoned or executed. She arranged marriages, military appointments, and government positions to strengthen her control. Her power extended to military matters as well. When rebels attacked the royal convoy during a journey, Nur Jahan personally took command. She coordinated the defense, directed troops, and even fired a musket herself. The rebels were crushed, and her reputation as both politician and warrior grew. For 16 years, Nur Jahan was the real ruler of Mughal India. She controlled an empire of millions while officially holding no title at all. When Jahangir died in 1627, she tried to install her own choice as emperor, but this time her political maneuvering failed. She was forced into retirement, her power finally broken. But for nearly 2 decades, she had proven that official titles meant nothing compared to actual control. Number 3. Cleopatra VII of Egypt, poison and politics. Everyone knows Cleopatra as the beautiful seductress who charmed Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, but history overlooks how she came to power by murdering her own family. When Cleopatra's father died in 51 BC, he left the throne to Cleopatra and her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, who were supposed to rule together. They were also supposed to marry each other. Following Egyptian royal custom, Cleopatra was 18. Ptolemy was 10. Cleopatra immediately began undermining her brother's authority. She removed his name from official documents and ruled alone, something Egyptian law forbade. When Ptolemy's advisors pushed back, Cleopatra had several of them assassinated. This triggered a civil war between the siblings. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, Cleopatra famously smuggled herself to him rolled in a carpet. But this wasn't romance. It was political calculation. She convinced Caesar to support her against Ptolemy. In the resulting war, Ptolemy XIII died, possibly murdered on Cleopatra's orders, though history isn't certain. Cleopatra then married her other younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, and ruled alongside him. But 3 years later, Ptolemy XIV mysteriously died. Most historians believe Cleopatra poisoned him to make her infant son co-ruler instead, giving her unchallenged power. Throughout her reign, Cleopatra systematically eliminated family members who might threaten her control. Her sister Arsinoe was murdered on her orders. Relatives, advisors, and political rivals disappeared or died conveniently. Cleopatra's intelligence and political skill were genuine. She spoke 9 languages, was highly educated, and proved to be a capable administrator. But her path to power was paved with family corpses. She used poison, assassination, and manipulation as readily as any male tyrant. When she finally died by suicide in 30 BC after Mark Antony's defeat, her ambition had destroyed not just her family but Egypt's independence itself. If these shocking female rulers are opening your eyes to history's hidden brutality, subscribe to Tyrant Tales. Number 2. Queen Nzinga of Angola, warrior queen. In 17th century Angola, Portuguese colonizers arrived with ships, weapons, and the goal of enslaving the entire population. One woman stood in their way for 40 years, Queen Nzinga. Nzinga became Queen of Ndongo in 1624 after her brother's suspicious death. Some historians believe she poisoned him, though this was never proven. What is certain is that she inherited a kingdom under siege by European invaders and decided to fight back with every brutal tactic available. Nzinga was a brilliant military strategist and absolutely ruthless. She allied with Dutch forces against the Portuguese, playing European powers against each other. She led armies personally, fighting in battles well into her 60s. Her warriors were feared throughout the region, but Nzinga's methods were savage. She ordered mass executions of captured Portuguese soldiers, often by burning them alive or impaling them on stakes as warnings. She sacrificed prisoners in religious ceremonies to maintain the loyalty of her soldiers and traditional priests. When towns refused to support her war effort, she had entire populations massacred as examples. Nzinga also engaged in the slave trade herself, capturing and selling people from rival kingdoms to fund her military campaigns. The woman who fought against Portuguese enslavement had no problem enslaving others when it served her purposes. She forced neighboring kingdoms to submit through military conquest and terror. Those who resisted faced total destruction. Her own people suffered under heavy taxation and forced military service. Thousands died in her endless wars. Yet Nzinga was also genuinely fighting for her people's independence. She defended Angola against colonial invasion for 4 decades, one of the longest resistance campaigns in African history. She negotiated peace treaties as skillfully as she waged war. When Nzinga died in 1663 at age 81, she had never been conquered. The Portuguese only succeeded in colonizing Angola after her death. She was simultaneously a brutal dictator who sacrificed thousands and a national hero who kept her kingdom independent. Number 1. Agrippina the Younger murdered her way to power. Agrippina the Younger, born in 15 AD, wanted power in ancient Rome. Women couldn't officially rule, so she found another way. She would control the emperor himself, and eventually make her son emperor. Agrippina was born into the imperial family. Her brother was Emperor Caligula, one of Rome's most notorious tyrants. She learned from his ruthless example. When Caligula was assassinated in 41 AD, Agrippina barely escaped being killed alongside him. Her big opportunity came when she seduced her uncle, Emperor Claudius, and convinced him to marry her despite Roman laws against such marriages. Once she was empress, Agrippina began eliminating rivals systematically. Anyone who opposed her disappeared. Wealthy Romans who might support competing factions were accused of treason and executed, their fortunes seized. Agrippina used poison frequently, developing a network of assassins and poisoners. She had Claudius's advisors removed or killed and replaced them with her own supporters. Most importantly, Agrippina convinced Claudius to adopt her son Nero and make him heir instead of Claudius's own biological son, Britannicus. This required extensive political manipulation and probably the murder of several people who opposed the adoption. Then in 54 AD, after securing Nero's succession, Agrippina allegedly poisoned Claudius himself. The emperor died after eating mushrooms prepared by Agrippina's food taster. Nero became emperor at age 16, with his mother as the true power behind the throne. For the first years of Nero's reign, Agrippina ruled through him. She sat behind a curtain during Senate meetings, directing policy. She controlled appointments and finances. But eventually, Nero grew tired of his mother's domination. In 59 AD, Nero ordered his own mother's assassination. After several failed attempts, soldiers finally killed her in her villa. According to legend, Agrippina's last words as she bared her stomach to the assassin's sword were "Strike here." For this is what bore Nero. The woman who murdered her way to ultimate power was finally destroyed by the son she had created. Conclusion: 5 more women who proved that brutality and ambition know no gender. Empress Irene blinded her own son to keep her throne. Nur Jahan controlled an empire from behind a curtain. Cleopatra poisoned her siblings and brothers for power. Queen Nzinga waged brutal war for 40 years. Agrippina murdered an emperor to make her son the ruler of Rome. Which of these 5 shocked you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Tyrant Tales. Hit that like button. Turn on notifications. And join us as we uncover the truth about power and the people who seized it without mercy.